Bryn, thank you so much for joining me on the Become a Media Maven podcast. Super excited to have you here and chat with you about everything marketing and retail.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Yeah, I'm a little jealous of your background. Like you look like so slick and cool, and I like got like some dusty blinds behind me. So I need to up my podcast video cast game, but I'll work on that.
Bryn, when I tell you where I am, you are going to change your mind. I am sitting on the floor in my closet.
Solid. Closets are actually great places for audio because the
All
clothes and
my
everything
soft
basically
clothes.
buffer it. Yeah, it's like it's almost like you're in a studio booth. Yeah. Yeah,
I
recording
know.
studio.
Yes,
It's
but I really am just hiding from my children who are in virtual school. That is why my closet has become my
solid.
office.
It's a
Yeah.
solid
Yeah.
play. Yeah.
I tell the kids, I'm going to my office, and they know that means I'm going to my closet. So,
Nice.
um, excited to chat with you because you're doing a lot of different things that aren't so traditional in the marketing world. I love hospitality. I love restaurants. A lot of our clients at Media Maven are restaurant clients, and we love getting them coverage on those big awareness days like National Mac and Cheese Day, Taco Tuesday, like those are our jam. You are doing so many unique things, not just with some of the restaurants that you work with, but also turning those restaurant clients into products. You're even working with people and working with people on their personal brands and turning some of those things into products. So tell us in a nutshell what you do on a day to day, and then we'll get into more specifics that people listening can take away and apply some strategies to their own business.
Very cool. Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I'm looking for on a day-to-day basis, and this is like to go super generic in general, is I'm just trying to identify opportunities. And then how can I leverage those opportunities for a business? It may be a new category that we're looking to get into. It may be, maybe our owner's looking at a new restaurant or a new restaurant space. And so just really trying to leverage and identify opportunities on a day-to-day basis, and that's really my focus. So, and that's a little too general. So I'll let you kind of dig down on what I mean by that.
Yes, no, I love it. Okay, so let's talk about what those opportunities are today because the opportunities today are very different than what they were even 5 years ago. And I feel like people are still operating like it's 1990 when it comes to marketing and PR. So tell me what those opportunities are now that you see day to day and what you do with them. Like, give me some specific stories of how you jump on them.
Yeah, so the biggest thing we try to do, again, it's all about opportunities and leveraging that. So what we're looking for is just ways, whether you're executing on social or PR. PR, the typical thing I always try to look for is why and why now. So if you can answer that story in advance and you can give that story to a reporter or somebody or producer, if you can answer that and it's relevant to them, then you're essentially going to get free press. So we're looking for those types of opportunities, identifying them, and then sometimes it's just trying to put some piece of content out there, or something that turns somebody's head and gets them to pay attention to you. I mean, a good kind of a quick story on that. So we have. I wish I could share the photo of it, but it's a fox that's kind of like a mascot almost of one of our restaurants, about this tall. He's ridiculous. He's got like a shotgun over his shoulder, and he's got like binoculars, and it's like completely ridiculous setup. But he was like a legit kind of like badass interior decorating piece that cost us like about $1,000 for one of our restaurants. And so he sits there, and so one night a couple fairly intoxicated individuals decided to steal him.
Oh,
And so
no.
like we've got like $10,000 bottles of bourbon and wine. Like, you think we don't have 48 like cameras all over our restaurant? So we've got the whole thing on camera. And then somebody in our IT group said, "Hey, I've got all this video." Like, I found out about it like a week later. And then I'm like, well, let's try to get it back, obviously, right? And so somebody in our IT group says, well, we've got the video. We're going to send it over to IMPD and see if the police department can try to investigate and find this. And I was pretty much like, I'm like, I'm like, slow down. I'm like, first, like, if we send this to IMPD, like, they're gonna laugh us out of the building. They're looking for like murderers and rapists. They're trying to like deal with riots. I'm like, they got really legit important stuff. Like, they're gonna laugh us out of the precinct if we go in there trying to have them find a 3 foot stuffed fox. Like, we can't do that, right? Let's be honest. And so we do that. And so, but then I was like, back up. I'm like, you got video of this? And so I get all the video, 5, 6 different videos of it. I edit the whole thing. I had a gal that was on my team, basically edits the whole thing and then posted it on social media. Before we posted it, I called my PR person and I said, you're going to get calls from Fox, CBS, ABC, NBC, like all the local affiliates. I said, if they ask, tell them they can, pull the video off our Facebook feed. They can share it. They can put it into their broadcast, like full rights, do whatever the hell they want with it. I don't care. And so, long story short, that was like 2 o'clock is when we posted it. By like 2:30, 3 o'clock, I mean, it's gone pretty much viral. It's everywhere in Indianapolis. It was like leading the nightly news on like every single, news broadcast. And I put like a $500 or $500 gift card for the reward, leading to the arrest or the apprehension or whatever. So, long story short, it was everywhere. I mean, it led pretty much every news broadcast. It was everywhere on Twitter, Facebook, everything. So, long story short, the guy that took it basically sends the thing back, sends the fox back in an Uber, like. It was so bad. Like I actually had a golf match. Me and a buddy of mine, we're in like the championship round of our golf league, right? I had to take my watch off because it kept buzzing with all the text messages and things I was getting. So I looked at my phone after I got done with a round, like hour and a half. I look at my phone, I had 86, like 84, 85 missed text messages from people who were like, have you seen this? Thing's everywhere. And it was kind of a hot mess, but it was fun. The person returned it. They were, pretty lighthearted about it. I mean, everybody had fun. It's like I think many of us have done something similar to that in an inebriated state. So there were certainly no hard feelings, and we kind of had some fun with it. But I mean, the amount of earned press we got off of that, it was probably 6 figures, and it cost us like literally nothing. Like $0 was our expense to get that much press. And so we've been able to just try to look for opportunities like that. And then in other instances, we've actually tried to push, or I try to get press. Push versus pull.
When you said that there was video of this stuffed fox being stolen, like I just went back to my days in a TV newsroom. That is like a dream for TV news. Like there were some stories that would have made like that were very newsworthy stories, but because there was no video, they're like, no, we can't cover it. We can't show anything. What are we going to show? The outside of the building? Like, who cares? If you have video of anything, like, of course it's going to lead the news. Like they're obsessed with security video. It's just like a thing in TV news. Oh my gosh, that might be one of my favorite stories told on the podcast to date.
It was fun. I'll give you another quick one, and again, all looking for opportunities. So another one I did. So St. Elmo, it's that old school classic steakhouse, right? We've got 20, 30 photos of Peyton Manning throughout the years, and who was a big advocate and friend of the restaurant. Like in his retirement speech, he literally says like the first thing he's gonna miss about football is I'm gonna miss a steak dinner at St. Elmo in Indianapolis after a win. Like broadcast on like every sporting news program across the U.S. is like that's what he said the first thing he's going to miss about football. And so we've got Elton John and LeBron and like all these athletes and celebrities, and they're all up on the walls, right? So 600 plus framed celebrity photos on the walls. And then probably about, I would say about 5 or 6 years ago, I noticed this one photo on the wall that was like it was crooked, like just a little bit crooked. And I started asking, I said, does anybody know who these people are? And it's a small photo about this big. And I said, I'm like, here's what happened. I'm like, this couple, they sat here one night They framed a little photo of themselves. They had some sticky tape on there. It was like totally legit premeditated. And they go and they slap that thing up there. And, and so I put it on, I went and put it on, I think we put it on maybe Facebook through the restaurant's page. And it kind of similar story, like it was everywhere. Like people were sharing it, and the couple, we ended up finding them. They were local, and it was totally good-hearted. I was like, hey, I just want to find out who these people are so I can buy them a drink and hear the story on how this thing got up here, because I know it wasn't us. And so the thing's everywhere. It runs all over the news. It's on, again, same thing. Every news channel is like talking about it, like who's this mystery couple that snuck their photo onto the walls of St. Elmo next to Peyton, and and all this stuff. And so it's like it's crazy. It's running everywhere. And so I end up getting the couple. They end up reaching out to us, and I'm like, sweet. I'm like, come in. I'm like, let's do a video following the video that we did. And then, and again, all of this stuff, we basically give all rights to any of the video for any news channel, whatever, to run with it. And we ended up getting I think we probably got, in terms of tracking it, I want to say we got $5,000 on that in terms of PR, kind of the front end of it. When we launched the initial video and all the traction we got from that. And that, again, those numbers are just what we can track from a news clipping standpoint. But we got all that.
So, it's so much higher than that, because there's so much that you can't track, and it lasts forever, unlike ads. When you stop paying for ads, they disappear. That stuff, I could Google it and find it today.
Yeah, if you search Winston the Fox St. Elmo, like you'll find 7, 10 different news broadcasts about Winston the Fox. So
I'm gonna put that in the show notes.
Yeah, seriously, like mystery photo at St. Elmo, that's another one. I mean, it just got a ton of press. And so I think what you're doing is definitely very smart, because it certainly broadcast media has changed. I'm a believer pretty firmly, and we don't do any traditional broadcast media, but that doesn't mean there isn't a tremendous benefit if you can get that conversation started and get the media and do it in a way that you get people talking about your brand. I think, and that's kind of the genesis of what I'm looking for in opportunities, because so many people in marketing, they're always worried about what they're saying, and what they need to kind of reframe the argument of the conversation is they need to think in terms of what other people might say about you, and how do you start those conversations. Because if you can do that, then social will feed PR. In both of those instances, we got 6 figures worth of press 2 times because we posted something on our social, and leverage that in a way. And to do that, you've got to do social in a way. Like we don't, pretty firmly, we have a policy of don't sell on social media. It's meant to be social. Like you don't want to be that person who's like trying to sell, Lululemon, whatever on their multi-level marketing kind of scheme, right? Like, and so our policy is basically don't sell. And when you do that, you build a following, and that, the algorithm responds to people who like your content. And if your content is good, then more people will see it. But it's, you almost have to treat yourself like a broadcast company. Like we look at ourselves as more of a media company in our marketing department than we look at ourselves as a marketing department. And so it's, how do we share something that's going to have value to someone? That's everything that we're looking for. And
there's two big takeaways I think people can get from what you just mentioned. One is that traditional media, non-traditional media, it all works together. And I always tell my clients, if we don't handle their social and we get them featured somewhere, we tell them, you need to go to your social, you need to share this, tag the outlet, tag the journalist. And some don't do that. They think, oh, we got the media, we're good, we're done, we don't need to do anything. And we have had, on a couple of occasions, had journalists tell us, hey, we'd love to include your client this time, but last time we did, they didn't share what we wrote, and they didn't do it, but their competition did. So we're going to go back to their competition because they're sharing our content. So that does happen. Like they work so well with each other. And for SEO purposes, like you can Google something and before you see a website, you can see something on social media. So I like that point. My other point, which I have been preaching since the beginning of time, is the two examples that you just shared on that amazing media coverage was not promotional. And the biggest mistake people make, and I got hundreds of emails every day, most of them from terrible PR agencies, some of them from business owners handling their own PR terribly, was a press release, which, first of all, we don't do press releases anymore. So stop with the press releases. But it was just overly promotional. Like, here's our restaurant, this is our menu, give us coverage. Like, that's not news. Like,
Right.
you have to have, like you said, you have to have something that is new and is exciting, and you have to give people a reason to do the story now. So what do you say to people, Bryn, who are still operating, because there are so many, because I don't know if they Google like how to do PR, but like, I wish I had $1 for every person who sent me a message on LinkedIn that said, how much do you charge for a press release? And I'm like, what do you want a press release for? Well, I want to get in the news. Well, it doesn't work like that. Like, it's
Right.
not 1990. So what do you say to people who are still using these antiquated marketing strategies that just don't work anymore?
I say keep it up, especially if they're in my market, because it allows us to crush them from a branding standpoint. Um, no, I mean, it's like you said. I mean, you can get press in different ways. I believe in I believe in the traditional press release, but only if it's like such a good idea. People are going to see it on a news wire and go, okay, I'll pick this up. But to do it in a traditional way, it's almost just irrelevant. So one thing we've done, so a business partner of mine and a separate retail product is Joey Chestnut Eats, and Joey is the dude that eats all the hot dogs on 4th of July. So it generates literally like hundreds of millions of dollars of media impressions a year, near the B number. Like, it's almost a billion, I think. Competitive eating per year generates 2 billion media impressions. That's all they do. That's their gig. And Joey is the biggest reason all of that happens. And so that's something that I had pushed for him, and he had never really done any type of press release, any type of those types of things. And so I pushed him. I'm like, next time you do an eating challenge that he posted on YouTube, I'm like, let's do a press release. We did that. It was a video where he ate, I'm not exaggerating, I think it was 32 or 33 Big Macs in like one sitting.
That makes me ill. Like,
Yeah,
no offense to this lovely, talented man,
yeah.
but that's
It's a weird gig. It's a weird gig, and he's the best ever at it, And so whenever somebody's the best at any given task or profession, like, it's kind of interesting. Like, you'd probably want
totally.
to have a podcast with the best Walmart greeter in the history of
Oh, that would
like,
be
that would be
amazing.
really interesting, right? Well, Joey is that, and he also is in something that's really strange. But back to the video ideas, it crushed it. I mean, that video, because we had so much press and it was everywhere. It was TMZ and USA Today. I mean, it was everywhere. And we ended up getting over 3 million views on that video. And I think the press release definitely helped push that. But back to your question, I think the two things that we look at, and why you need to treat marketing and media and PR differently is, you can't pay for attention anymore. It doesn't work. Magazine coverage, newspapers, all of that media, it's like the only situation where as your distribution goes down, your price goes up, because they still got to print the thing and they still have overhead costs. And and news reporters, they're actually reviewed and compensated based on the number of views that their articles get. So back to your question earlier, like, what we try to do, two quick things for media and how to get media, at least if you're in the restaurant industry. One, feed them. Like $100 worth of free food gets you $1,000 worth of press. Like, are you crazy? Like, do that often. That's a quick, easy hack right there. Like, they like to eat. But the big thing that we do is we try to support their agenda. I try to give them a story that has value to them and is going to be something that gets eyeballs and adds value to whatever message, publication, whatever that they're trying to do. And if you do that alone, you're going to get more attention. You're going to get more press. So if we get an article or win an award or have something published in a magazine, journal, whatever, we we promote the hell out of it. And I try to push that attention to their media properties because, again, they're going to be, they're going to see that. And then next year, if that same award happens again, I'm going to make sure to push that out again because it's helping their agenda, which benefits them. And they track that stuff. Like you said, they're looking at that. So I think it's the biggest thing is look for opportunities, stop selling, and find ways to add value to other people's conversation. And it can't be about what your agenda is.
And the 3 stories that you shared, those 3 things that hit really big with the media were for, I think, 2 big reasons. One, they were non-promotional. They knew you weren't trying to, sneak your way in by getting, a free commercial.
Yep.
And 2, nobody else could have told those stories. Nobody else had a stuffed fox stolen. Nobody else was looking for the mystery couple on the wall. And nobody else can eat that much freaking food in one sitting and be known for doing that. Like, you had 3 things that nobody else could talk about. And when we talk about pitching to be on podcasts, I always tell people, why are you the person to talk about this? Because talk about marketing. Anybody can talk about PR. Anybody can talk about social. Why are you the one to talk about this? And nobody else could have done or told those 3 stories that you told on this podcast. So I think that's a big takeaway. I think people, maybe they're playing it too safe, and maybe they just don't understand how competitive it is. Like, people, this is free media exposure. Like, when I get clients on the Today Show and they're like, "Oh, cool, thanks." I'm like, no, you don't understand how hard this is. You don't understand how many people want to be on the Today Show. And if you had to pay for this, how much that would cost. And then even if you do pay for it, you don't get the credibility. You don't get the authority. People know it's an ad and it doesn't mean a whole lot. So I think people need to step up their game. They need to stop playing it to really find out what's different about them and talk to your customers and your clients and people around you, or else you're not going to get these stories. Like, you would not have known there was video of Mr. Fox walking out the door. You wouldn't, I mean, you really have to think outside of the box. So I love that you told all of those stories, because I think that's a great way for people to learn. And I'm going to link to those stories in the show notes for this episode so people can check them out, because they are very entertaining. Anything else, Bryn, that you want to add that I should have asked?
I don't know. I think, I like totally like geek out and nerd out on all things PR, media, marketing. So, I mean, I probably could, it would be like a 4-hour podcast that I think you and I would enjoy, but yeah.
But I need to get out of the closet sometime today.
I know, like, yeah, literally. Yeah. I think to cap it, kind of what you had said is I think how people get out of that. And I think the reason why traditional media is still failing for so many people, I think it stems from, it's kind of 3 things that I would target. One is empathy. I learned very early on in my career, starting in sales and then transitioning to marketing, that whatever I think, whatever I want is completely irrelevant. It just doesn't matter. It's what a customer wants to see. It's what somebody in the media wants to share. And so my story is only relevant if somebody else thinks it is. And so unless you can put yourself in somebody else's shoes, you're always going to have trouble getting that organic and that natural lift in whatever your message is. And so I think it has to start with empathy. And then the 2 things that really fail, I think, one is you can be mediocre in marketing and live forever. Like nobody is fired for mediocrity. You get fired for like train wreck bad ideas. And so why that happens or why that exists is in operations and in typical businesses, on the operations side, everything is it's binary. It's black and white. The guest was on time, they were late, the food was hot or it's cold, it's right or it's wrong, the person showed up or they didn't. Everything that they work in a typical operational setting it's very objective. It's just black and white. Whereas in marketing, like, is Google's logo a good logo? Well, ask 100 people, you're going to get 100 different responses. And so it's hard to really identify whether something was objectively really good or not. In PR, you can do that because you can measure it, right? Same as social. So, but pushing yourself to get out of your comfort zone and do something that's a little out there, that's the only way you're really going to support somebody else's agenda, which is in turn going to give you more organic reach on whatever you're doing. In the second place, the leadership kind of structure here, and my boss, who's the owner of St. Omo, I mean, it's very decentralized leadership. You know, he gives me a lot of autonomy to do these crazy ass ideas and come up with stuff that gets us press. So you can't put somebody in a marketing position and then tell them what to do, because a boss is going to say, we need to promote our products. Well, if you promote your products on social media, the message will fail. And that's why you see McDonald's, who has 80 million followers on their Facebook, I get more likes and organic traction on some of the stuff that I put out, even personally on my LinkedIn page, than McDonald's is getting with 78 million followers. And they're doing it because all they ever do is sell. They're not providing any value to anyone. So bosses, owners of companies that may be listening to this, let your marketing people craft a message that actually people want to receive and has value. And that can be done in one of three ways. You can either educate, entertain, or motivate someone. And if you're putting out content that doesn't educate, motivate, entertain, you're failing. You're just not going to win, because all you're doing is pushing out your agenda that nobody's going to interact with. And if they don't interact with it, it crushes your algorithm and you get no attention. So I think it's those three things.
100%. And I agree with you on, like, you just got to let people do their job. And in my experience, as the owner of a PR agency, we have had clients, and everybody thinks, like, I think it's a myth that, like, you need a big company and a lot of money to get all this press coverage. Usually the bigger the company, the harder it is, because they make it hard on you. They like want to approve everything and let's run this by legal. And there's so much red tape that you're going to miss the opportunity, especially when it comes to media, where it's like, we need things quickly. And you mentioned, I just can't not mention Wendy's Twitter account and how amazing it is. If you're talking about McDonald's, like a Twitter account like Wendy's, like they just roast all of their competition in such a funny way that it is so entertaining. Like, I don't even eat it, but I will follow them on Twitter for entertainment.
Right.
It's amazing.
It adds value, and they're not selling anything. And the other piece, last piece on that, I think we haven't really touched on, is social media is, as it's defined, is meant to be social. So Wendy's has a brand identity. You, like, when they push something out, it's like it's coming from that brand. And anybody that's handling social media, you need to take it serious enough that it needs to almost have the voice of the owner or the business at the top level. And a lot of companies just go, hey, go put us on Facebook, go get an Instagram thing. Hey, TikTok is big, go figure that out. And they don't give people the autonomy to manage it in some cases. And in other cases, they give them so much autonomy and they don't watch it. They don't know what's going on, and they don't know that they're basically pushing stuff out there that, you know, like maybe your cousin's, you know, nephew's intern shouldn't be running your account. You should take it a little bit more seriously. But once the person is up to speed and they're doing very well with it, that's something that you have to own internally. Last thing I will say on PR, just in general, that's the only real part of our business that we actually do not do in-house. We do social in-house. We do a lot of our ad creation, a lot of our photography, so much of what we do in-house. But PR, I highly recommend everybody that I talk to in this space to hire somebody that does PR, because they have the relationships with media. Mm-hmm. They know the producers. They know how to position things in a way that'll be more likely to get press. And so whenever anybody's looking at how to tackle PR, social, digital, I think a lot of that stuff you're going to want to bring in-house. Because if I hire somebody to do social that doesn't live in our building, it's never going to be as good as if I put the resources towards it and do it myself. But PR, the conversation and the value lives outside of our building and outside of our organization. And so in order to really leverage and maximize that, you're essentially paying for that person's, one, their expertise, and two, their contacts and their connections. That's essentially what you're paying for. So I think PR is probably the most undervalued and the best ROI in business right now if it's done correctly.
And it's hard. My frustration with it And I think this comes not just from having a PR agency, but from coming from being a TV reporter and anchor, is so many people don't understand what it is, and it takes
Yeah.
so much education, and people want it to work a certain way, and it just doesn't work that way. Like it's
Right.
one of the very few things in marketing that we can't give you any guarantees. Like I have potential clients say, "Okay, well where are you going to get me? And when are you going to get me there?" And it's like nobody in PR can tell you that. Like
Yeah.
I can tell you what I would do, what we have done in the past, what it's like working in a newsroom and how we filter stories and cover them. But because this is all earned media, nobody can guarantee you anything. And there are a lot of PR agencies who guarantee things that they cannot. And those you should run from, or you should get those guarantees in writing so your ass is covered. It's
Right.
a tricky industry. It's a very tricky industry. And it's constantly changing as the media changes. So I think it's so important for everybody to keep their finger on the pulse of what's happening. Like, if I'm going to own a PR agency, I'm going to have a podcast. I'm going to be on podcasts. I'm still going to be on TV. Like, it speaks volumes, Bryn, that you are coming on my podcast. Like, clearly, you understand marketing and you understand the value of being a guest on a podcast. There's a lot of people in your position who still don't get it because, again, they're operating like it's 10 years ago, like, oh, what's a podcast? So it's so
Right.
important to be on top of the industry and what's going on. Brandon, we could talk all day. We really could, but I got to get out of the closet. Um, this has been great. If people want to find out more about you, where can they connect with you?
Best place I live. I live on LinkedIn. That's pretty much the only social media that for our business, I've got us everywhere. But in terms of my personal social media, find me on LinkedIn. I'll be pretty easy to find. So I'm pretty active in that space. So yeah, hit me on LinkedIn with any questions or thoughts or just the connection.
Perfect. I will link to HuseCulinary.com. We will find those stories that you can visit to find out more about Winston the Fox, the mystery photo at St. Elmo, um, the man who can eat 1,000,000 Big Macs in a minute. And then we will also link to your LinkedIn profile. Thank you so much, Bryn.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.